There's a trap hiding in plain sight. It looks harmless. It feels good. It's convenient, fast, easy, and everywhere. And once you get used to it, you stop questioning it. It becomes the background noise of your life. But over time, it erodes your discipline. It robs you of your resilience. It kills your ability to focus, execute, and grow. That trap is instant gratification. You don't notice it at first. It starts with small choices. You skip the workout because you're tired. You reach for comfort food instead of fueling your body. You watch one more episode instead of going to sleep. You check the fridge even though you're not hungry. You do it without even realizing it. And each time you tell yourself, it's no big deal. Just one more time. Just a few more minutes. Just this once. But those moments stack up. They become patterns. The patterns become habits. And before long, you've trained yourself to respond to every discomfort, every craving, every impulse with a hit of relief, a quick escape, a shortcut, a dopamine rush, something, anything to avoid the hard thing. And the more you feed that habit, the weaker your self-control becomes. The more you choose comfort now, the more difficult it becomes to do the hard things later. And eventually, what used to be hard becomes impossible. What used to be a decision becomes automatic. And what used to be a choice becomes your identity. Because instant gratification doesn't just cost you time. It rewires your brain. It conditions you to associate effort with pain. It teaches you to avoid resistance. It rewards you for doing nothing. And over time, it destroys the qualities you need to succeed. Discipline, patience, grit, resilience, clarity, long-term thinking. It convinces you that satisfaction should be immediate, that growth should be easy, that discomfort is something to avoid, not something to overcome. And once that belief takes root, you stop challenging yourself. You stop reaching, you stop building, because building takes time, because growth feels slow, because results don't come in minutes, they come in seasons. And most people don't last that long. Not because they're not capable, but because they've trained themselves to crave the fast hit, the easy win, the immediate payoff. They start things, but never finish them. They set goals, but quit after 2 weeks. They feel motivated for a moment, but it fades the second it gets uncomfortable. And this is the truth about instant gratification. It's not just a distraction, it's a thief. It robs you of your potential. It numbs your hunger for more. It convinces you to settle, to shrink, to choose relief over reward. And the more you choose it, the further you drift from the person you're capable of becoming. But the good news is this: you can retrain your mind. You can rebuild your discipline. You can reverse the damage. You can reclaim your attention, your energy, your clarity. But it won't happen by accident. It takes effort. It takes awareness. It takes a willingness to face the discomfort you've been avoiding. Because the solution to instant gratification is not found in doing more. It's found in doing what matters, even when you don't feel like it. It's found in choosing discomfort now, so you can enjoy freedom later. It's found in delaying pleasure, not because you enjoy pain, but because you value progress. You have to unlearn the conditioning. You have to fight the instinct to reach for the quick fix. You have to build new patterns, patterns that reward effort, patterns that reinforce patience, patterns that connect you to the long game. Because the long game is where the real reward lives. You have to shift the way you think about gratification, because it's not about avoiding pleasure forever. It's about earning it. It's about aligning your rewards with your values. It's about building the life you want, not escaping the one you have. And once you make that shift, once you start rewiring your brain to associate satisfaction with work, with growth, with mastery, everything begins to change. You stop chasing hits of pleasure. You start building a legacy. Instant gratification is not new. It's not a modern invention. It's a part of human nature, a built-in survival mechanism designed to keep us safe, to keep us fed, to keep us comfortable. In ancient times, immediate reward made sense. If you found food, you ate it. If you sensed danger, you ran from it. If you were cold, you sought shelter. Survival was linked to the ability to respond quickly, to solve discomfort now, not later. But the world changed, and the environment we live in now no longer rewards impulsive behavior. It punishes it. Because in a modern world of abundance, the things that used to serve us now destroy us. The instinct to avoid pain leads to weakness. The instinct to seek comfort leads to stagnation. The instinct to chase reward without earning it leads to addiction. And now, we live in a world where everything is available instantly. You can click a button on the remote and be entertained. You can click and be comforted. You can avoid effort and still get a dopamine hit. You can opt out of challenge and still feel stimulated. But every time you do, you are trading long-term power for short-term pleasure. And the more you do it, the more your brain adapts. It rewires itself to expect reward without effort, to seek escape instead of engagement, to crave stimulation instead of satisfaction. And what's worse is, it starts to feel normal. It starts to feel like this is just the way things are. But it's not. It's a distortion. The truth is, gratification without growth is empty. Comfort without effort is meaningless. Pleasure without purpose is destructive. Because nothing great, nothing lasting, nothing meaningful is built instantly. It's built through repetition, through endurance, through sacrifice. And if you want to reclaim your ability to grow, to focus, to achieve, you have to untrain the habit of reaching for the easy win. You have to rebuild your capacity for delayed gratification. That means training yourself to wait, to endure discomfort, to choose the hard thing now in service of something greater later. This starts with awareness. You begin noticing the pattern, the impulse, that moment when you want to check out, when your mind starts scanning for something easier, something quicker, something that doesn't require as much from you. That's the signal. That's the moment you've trained yourself to respond to without thinking. But now you pause, you notice, you breathe, you ask, what am I trying to avoid right now? What discomfort am I unwilling to face? And most of the time, the answer will be small. Boredom, fatigue, insecurity, frustration. But it's in those small moments that the battle is won or lost. You don't need to conquer instant gratification with willpower alone. You conquer it with identity. You start shifting the way you see yourself. You stop saying, I'm just lazy. I'm just someone who can't focus. I'm just addicted to comfort. And you start saying, I'm someone who does hard things. I'm someone who values growth. I'm someone who shows up when it counts. Because every time you choose discipline over distraction, you reinforce that identity. Every time you delay gratification, you teach your brain that effort is not something to avoid. It's something to embrace. Every time you do what's hard instead of what's easy, you become stronger. And this is not about becoming a monk. It's not about cutting all joy from your life. It's about being in control of your impulses instead of being controlled by them. It's about choosing when to rest, when to indulge, when to relax, not being dragged into those choices by habit or emotion. So you start rewiring one small moment at a time. When you feel the urge to quit, keep going. When you feel the pull to procrastinate, start anyway. When you want the reward now, earn it first. It won't feel natural at first. That's okay. You're not looking for ease. You're looking for change. You begin building friction around your distractions. You make them harder to access. You remove temptations from your environment. You put systems in place that make discipline easier. Because success is not about having more willpower. It's about needing less of it. It's about designing a life that supports your goals, not your habits. And as you do this, your internal state begins to shift. The things you used to crave start to lose their grip. The things you used to avoid start to feel more manageable. You begin to feel the power that comes from saying no. The confidence that comes from following through. The clarity that comes from choosing your future over your feelings. And in that process, your capacity expands. You start being able to sit with discomfort longer. You stop needing to run every time things get hard. You stop needing the next hit of stimulation. You start enjoying the stillness, the work, the silence, the slow burn of progress. Because that's where real life is. That's where growth lives. That's where transformation begins. Not in the flash, not in the hit, not in the moment of escape, but in the moment of choice. When everything in you wants to quit, but you stay. When every part of you wants relief, but you choose the hard road instead. And it's in those moments that character is built. It's in those moments that confidence is earned. Because you're no longer living at the mercy of your cravings. You're leading yourself. And leadership starts with self-leadership. It starts with command over your own impulses. This takes time. It takes patience. But it also takes a standard, a decision that certain behaviors, certain patterns, certain shortcuts are no longer acceptable. You stop negotiating with your goals. You stop making excuses for why this one time doesn't matter. Because every time matters. Every choice matters. Every moment of hesitation is an opportunity to reinforce or reverse your standard. And when you live that way, when you hold the line day after day, you become dangerous. Because now you are not dependent on motivation. You are not addicted to comfort. You are not swayed by distractions. You are built for endurance, built for discipline, built for real success. Instant gratification thrives in silence. It does its best work when you're not thinking, when you're not paying attention, when you're on autopilot, gliding through your day, responding to every craving, every impulse, every small wave of resistance with an unconscious yes. That's how it wins. Not with a battle, but with a whisper, with an unnoticed reach, with a quiet little bargain. Just one more, just this once. You've earned it. And the damage doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, cumulatively, gradually. The late nights, the skipped workouts, the unchecked spending, the impulse decisions, the emotional reactions. One by one, day by day, they stack. And then you wake up and wonder why your goals feel distant, why your energy feels scattered, why your confidence has faded. This is the truth. Small choices shape your life. And most of those choices are made without thinking. That's why awareness matters. That's why presence matters. That's why you cannot afford to go through your day asleep at the wheel. Because every moment you drift is a moment you surrender to the pull of the easy way. You have to start paying attention. You have to slow down enough to notice the moment right before the moment, the second before you pick up your phone, the moment before you hit snooze, the gap between the craving and the action. That is the window where your future is being shaped. And that window is small, it's fragile, it's fleeting. But if you can step into it, if you can catch yourself in that space and pause, you give yourself power. You interrupt the loop. You gain leverage. You move from reaction to response. And in that shift, you begin to take back control. But here's what most people do instead. They justify, they rationalize, they explain away the decision. It's not that big of a deal. I'll get back on track tomorrow. This won't make a difference. And in that moment, they trade their integrity for relief, their progress for comfort, their future for a few seconds of escape. And then they do it again and again until it becomes normal, until their word no longer means anything, until their self-trust starts to erode. Not because they're weak, not because they're broken, but because they haven't trained themselves to delay gratification, because they haven't built the habit of standing still in discomfort. And that's what this really comes down to, your relationship with discomfort. Because instant gratification is not about the phone or the food or the television. It's about the refusal to sit with something hard. It's about the instinct to move away from tension instead of through it. You have to rewire that instinct. You have to retrain your system. You have to teach yourself that discomfort is not danger, that craving is not command, that impulse is not identity. And that starts by creating small moments of resistance on purpose, micro challenges, friction, intentional pause. That might mean setting a timer before opening your favorite app, waiting 10 minutes before acting on a craving, doing 5 push-ups when you want to lay around, taking 3 deep breaths before reacting to frustration. It's not about punishment, it's about programming. You're teaching your nervous system to slow down. You're showing your brain that you don't answer to every urge. And the more you do this, the more resilient you become. The less triggered you are, the less reactive, the more grounded. Because now, you're no longer a slave to your impulses. You're becoming a person who chooses, who leads, who holds the line. It's not glamorous. It won't get applause. No one's going to pat you on the back when you choose to sit in stillness instead of reaching for a shortcut. But you will know. You will feel the shift, and that shift will become your edge. Because when other people are chasing quick hits, you're building staying power. When others are looking for a way out, you're leaning in. When others are being distracted by noise, you're deep in your craft. That separation is not luck. It's not timing. It's repetition. Every time you say no to the easy thing, you say yes to something greater. You say yes to clarity, to mastery, to peace, to the confidence that only comes from self-respect. That is the reward for holding the line. You begin to redefine reward, because if you don't, your brain will always default to what's fast, what's loud, what's convenient. You have to condition yourself to associate reward with results, not with relief, with progress, not with procrastination. That means celebrating consistency. That means tracking your effort. That means noticing the pride that comes after a day of discipline. Not the comfort you feel in the moment, but the strength you feel when you know you did what needed to be done. That becomes the new high, the new hit, the new addiction. And the more you feed that, the stronger it grows. Because your brain is always looking for feedback. And when you give it feedback that growth is satisfying, it starts craving growth. It starts craving challenge. It starts craving the next level. Not because it's easy, but because it's aligned. But this only works if you're honest. You have to stop lying to yourself. You have to stop calling procrastination rest. You have to stop calling avoidance self-care. You have to stop justifying your patterns with clever language. It's not about being perfect, but it is about being real. Because nothing changes until the language does. And if your story is built around escaping pain, you'll never make peace with progress. You'll always run the second it gets hard. And hard is where the breakthrough lives. So you start catching the stories. You start asking better questions. Not, how do I feel right now, but what do I want most? Not, do I want to do this, but who do I want to become? Not, what's the easiest way out, but what's the most aligned step forward? Those questions change everything. Because now, you're not just reacting. You're leading. You're building internal architecture. You're creating structure where chaos used to live. And structure is what sets you free. Because discipline is not a cage, it's a framework, a system that protects you from your lower self, a wall that keeps the distractions out so you can build something great inside. And instant gratification has no place in that structure because it does not serve you, it does not support you, it does not strengthen you. And once you see that clearly, once you stop romanticizing the quick fix and start falling in love with the slow climb, you'll start to notice something. Your mind gets quieter. Your choices get clearer. Your execution gets sharper. Because you're no longer pulled in 10 directions. You're aligned. Instant gratification is a thief in disguise. It steals not just your discipline, not just your time, not just your progress. It steals your capacity to endure. And the people who achieve greatness, who master their craft, who build lasting success, they all share one thing in common. They can endure longer than most people are willing to. They can sit in the quiet for longer. They can delay comfort longer. They can stay focused when others fold. That endurance is not genetic. It's not talent. It's not some mystical force only the elite are born with. It's the result of habits, of training, of hundreds of reps where they said no to comfort and yes to growth. It's forged in repetition, in friction, in the refusal to take the easy out. And you build that kind of endurance by challenging yourself on purpose. Not once a year, not only when things fall apart, every day, through discipline, through constraint, through repetition. You build it in the tiny decisions that no one sees. The 5 a.m. alarm, the skipped dessert, the extra rep, the difficult conversation you chose to have. It's not dramatic. It's not glamorous, but it's transformational. Because you're not just doing hard things. You're becoming someone for whom hard things are normal. You are changing your relationship with discomfort. And once that relationship changes, your possibilities expand. You start to realize something. The goal isn't to feel good in the moment. The goal is to feel aligned. And alignment doesn't always feel comfortable. Sometimes it feels like silence, like waiting, like restraint. But the deeper satisfaction that follows, nothing compares to that. Nothing compares to looking back and knowing you chose the long road when the short one was right there. Because anyone can choose the easy way once, but only a few can consistently choose the meaningful way. And if you want to build a life that matters, if you want to create work that lasts, if you want to become someone you're truly proud of, you have to become one of the few. You have to start seeing instant gratification for what it really is. A lie, a trap, a story you've been told that says you should always feel good. always feel ready, always feel pleasure. But life doesn't work like that. Mastery doesn't work like that. Growth doesn't work like that. Growth is boring sometimes. It's repetitive. It's lonely. It's slow. There are no guarantees. There are no applause breaks. And for long stretches, it looks like nothing is working. But beneath the surface, everything is changing. Every day you show up, your foundation gets stronger. Every day you follow through, your mind gets quieter. Every day you delay gratification, your future gets closer. And if you stay in that process long enough, you begin to see the payoff, the compounding, the separation. Where others dropped off, you stayed. Where others gave up, you grew up. And now the gap is visible. Now the distance is real. Now the results can't be ignored. But you don't get there by hoping. You don't get there by getting fired up once a year. You get there by shifting your standard. You get there by raising the bar on what you expect from yourself, not occasionally, but consistently. Because your standards determine your default, and your default determines your direction. When your standard is high, shortcuts become irrelevant. When your standard is high, temptation becomes noise. When your standard is high, comfort isn't an option. It's a warning sign, a signal that you're moving backward, that you're shrinking, that you're not being who you're capable of being. So how do you raise your standard? You start by getting sick of your own patterns. You stop sugarcoating. You stop making excuses. You stop saying, it's not that bad. If it's keeping you from your potential, it's that bad. If it's making you smaller, it's that bad. If it's building habits that work against your future, it's that bad. You draw a line. You decide, this version of me is over. Not in a month. Not when you feel like it. Now, because change doesn't begin when conditions are perfect. Change begins when your standard becomes non-negotiable. And then you reinforce it, not with emotion, not with hype, but with action, with rituals, with systems, with daily decisions that say, this is who I am now. You don't have to feel like it. You don't have to believe it yet. You just have to act like it. And the belief will follow. The feeling will catch up. This is why discipline matters. Not because it makes you better than anyone else, but because it aligns you with the life you say you want. Because it's how you close the gap between intention and execution, between potential and progress, between who you were and who you're becoming. Every time you choose the long game, you're voting for that version of yourself. Every time you delay gratification, you're casting a ballot for your future. Every time you push through resistance, you're proving to yourself that you are not a prisoner of your old patterns. And that proof compounds. That identity strengthens until one day you don't even recognize the old you. The one who needed comfort, who needed distraction, who needed stimulation to get through the day. That version's gone, replaced by someone sharper, stronger, clearer, more grounded. Someone who's no longer pulled by impulse, but guided by principle. Someone who's no longer searching for motivation, but built on integrity. Someone who's no longer addicted to the shortcut, but committed to the climb. That's who you're building. That's what this is about. Not just changing your habits, not just getting more done, but becoming someone worth trusting. Someone you look in the mirror and respect. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real, because you're consistent, because you show up when it counts. The real battle with instant gratification begins when you've already made progress, when you've already started building momentum, when you've pushed past the early resistance, and now you're in the space where things feel good, comfortable. That's when the temptation comes back stronger. Not as something obvious, not as a loud distraction, but as a subtle whisper. You've earned it. And that's where many people lose their edge. They confuse progress with permission. They confuse momentum with mastery. And they start relaxing, just a little. They stop being sharp. They stop guarding their time. They let small compromises slide through. And before long, their standard begins to drop without them even realizing it. That's the danger of success, not the failure. Success makes you soft if you let it. And the gateway drug is comfort. The more comfort you accumulate, the more likely you are to trade discipline for ease, focus for entertainment, growth for pleasure. You stop building, you start consuming. And it feels innocent. It feels like you're just taking a break. But that break turns into a pattern. That pattern turns into your new normal. And now, you're not just stalling, you're reversing. Not with a crash, but with drift. Quiet, gradual, invisible, until it's too late. This is why consistency must outlive motivation. This is why your standard must outlast your results. Because the moment you tie your habits to how well things are going, you become unstable, fragile, reactive. And the work you did to build strength starts to erode. You have to build a system that keeps your edge sharp, even when life is good, especially when life is good. You don't stop doing what got you there just because you've arrived. You double down. You keep your morning routine. You keep your discipline. You keep your rituals, not because you need them every day, but because you know what happens when you stop. Discipline is not seasonal. It's not something you bring out when you feel behind. It's a way of life. It's the framework that allows you to grow when others plateau. It's the force that protects your future when comfort tries to steal it. Because comfort is not the enemy, but it becomes one when you no longer control it. When it starts making decisions for you. When it starts pulling you away from the life you were building and into the trap of maintenance. And maintenance is dangerous because it feels responsible. It feels stable. But if you're not growing, you're decaying. If you're not climbing, you're drifting. If you're not sharpening your standard, your old patterns will begin to creep back in. You have to stay vigilant. You have to audit your habits, even when things are working. You have to ask yourself, what am I tolerating now that I would have never tolerated 6 months ago? Where have I gotten sloppy? Where have I let ease replace effort? And the moment you spot it, you correct it. You don't spiral. You don't beat yourself up. You get honest. You course correct. You remind yourself, progress doesn't justify compromise. Momentum doesn't replace maintenance. Results don't replace rituals. You keep doing the work. You keep showing up. You keep saying no to the quick hit. Not because you don't deserve rest, but because you know what's at stake. Because you remember how hard it was to get here. And you're not willing to let it slip through your fingers. And here's what happens when you live that way. You stop needing hype to stay consistent. You stop chasing motivation. You stop waiting for things to feel right. Your actions become automatic. Your habits become identity. Your consistency becomes legacy. That's when you start separating, not just from who you used to be, but from everyone else. Because most people only perform when it's urgent, when it's exciting, when the pressure is on. But you perform because it's who you are, because it's what you do, because you've built yourself that way. And that kind of consistency compounds, quietly, invisibly, but powerfully. It makes you better at things other people don't even think about. It gives you clarity when others are lost. It gives you structure when others are scattered. It gives you peace when others are chasing the next high. Because you're not chasing anymore. You're building. You're leading. You're reinforcing your standard every day, one choice at a time. That's what real discipline looks like. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's consistent. It's quiet. It's unshakable. But you have to protect it, not from enemies, from yourself, from your lower impulses, from your old wiring, from the voice that whispers, it's okay to let up just a little, because a little becomes a lot. A moment becomes a habit. A day off becomes a week. So you catch that voice early. You say, not today. You say, that's not who I am anymore. And you act in alignment with your highest standard, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And you teach yourself again and again that the pain of discipline is always smaller than the pain of regret. That a moment of effort is always worth more than a moment of relief. That every choice you make is either building your future or taking from it. That's the truth most people never face. Every decision matters, not just the big ones, the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones you think don't count, because those are the ones that shape you. That's where character is built. That's where discipline is tested. That's where identity is forged. The most dangerous thing about instant gratification is that it disguises itself as relief, as reward, as self-care. It shows up when you're tired and says, just take a break. It shows up when you're overwhelmed and says, just give yourself some grace. It shows up when you're on the edge of a breakthrough and says, this isn't worth it. There's an easier way. And the more you listen, the more it wins. It doesn't take your goals from you all at once. It chips away at them, one compromise at a time, one skipped workout, one late night, one promise broken, one excuse accepted, until you wake up and realize that you've drifted from the life you were building. And even worse, you've started to rationalize it. You've started to tell yourself, this is good enough. I've done okay. I'm doing more than most people. And while there's nothing wrong with gratitude, there's a difference between being grateful and being complacent. One feeds your spirit. The other kills your drive. So ask yourself, have I been honest? Am I living at the edge of my potential? Or have I been coasting? Have I been lowering the bar just enough to stay comfortable but still feel productive? Because that middle ground is where dreams go to die. Not in failure, in comfort. The enemy of greatness isn't struggle. It's mediocrity disguised as stability. It's the subtle belief that you've done enough, that you're above the basics now, that you don't need to push anymore. But the moment you stop pushing, you start fading. Because growth is not neutral. You're either ascending or descending. And if you've ever seen someone with incredible potential stall out, it wasn't because they couldn't keep going. It's because they stopped wanting more. Because the dopamine from small wins seduced them. Because the praise from others convinced them they were finished. Because the pull of comfort was louder than the call to continue. You have to protect your hunger. Not just in the beginning, but even more when you've started to taste progress. Because the climb gets harder when you start to see results. Now you've got something to lose. Now you've built a reputation. Now people have expectations. And that pressure can either refine you or make you retreat. The way you handle pressure says everything about you. Most people avoid it. They lighten their load. They slow their pace. They try to maintain what they've built instead of building more. But the elite, they use pressure. They use it to lock in to get sharper, to eliminate distractions, because pressure exposes what comfort conceals. So you train for pressure. You train your nervous system to stay calm when your schedule gets crazy. You train your focus to sharpen when the stakes are high. You train your habits to hold when emotions spike. And that training begins with one habit, the habit of choosing long-term over short-term. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it only grows through use. Every time you want to quit and you don't, you strengthen it. Every time you feel the pull to escape and choose to engage instead, you reinforce it. Every time you bypass the quick win for the long game, you upgrade it. And eventually, it becomes who you are. You don't need to remind yourself to stay disciplined. It's just what you do. You don't have to hype yourself up to make the right decision. You've built a system that makes the right decision automatic. That's the power of identity. Because at a certain point, success isn't about effort. It's about alignment. When your actions, your words, your thoughts, and your identity are aligned, you don't have to grind so hard. You don't have to force every breakthrough. Your life begins to flow in the direction of your design. But that only happens when the identity is real. And you only build that identity through habits that contradict your lower self. You become disciplined by doing disciplined things. You become focused by removing distractions. You become consistent by showing up when you don't feel like it. And those moments, the hard ones, the lonely ones, the boring ones, those are the ones that shape you, that define you, that separate you. Because everyone looks good when it's easy. But who are you when it's hard? Who are you when no one's watching? Who are you when comfort calls your name? That's the real test. And that's the real reward. The confidence that comes from knowing that you passed it, that you didn't fold, that you didn't sell out for a temporary high, that you held the line, that you honored the vision even when the feeling faded. Because feelings fade, motivation fades, but standard stays. And if your standard is high enough, you will win, not once, but repeatedly, not quickly, but sustainably, not through intensity, but through alignment. And the people who live at that level, they don't live there by accident. They designed it. They earned it. They bled for it. They rewired themselves to delay gratification, to love the process, to find joy in the work instead of the outcome. That's what greatness is made of. So you need to decide right now what kind of life you're going to build. A life that bends to your emotions, or a life that's grounded in principle. A life that's governed by comfort, or a life that's defined by purpose. That decision is not made once, it's made daily, in the smallest choices, in the quietest moments, in the seconds where no one would blame you for slipping, but you don't. Not because you're perfect, but because you're clear. And when clarity becomes habit, and habit becomes identity, and identity becomes lifestyle, that's when success becomes inevitable. Not guaranteed, not easy, but inevitable. Because you're no longer hoping. You're living the habits that make it happen. If there's one truth you carry from this entire message, let it be this. Instant gratification is not harmless. It is not neutral. It is not a small compromise. It is a decision with direction. And that direction is always away from your potential. Because every time you choose ease over effort, comfort over clarity, pleasure over purpose, you are not just making a temporary trade. You are shaping your character. You are writing the script your future will read from. You are setting the tone for who you become. And the people who win long term, they aren't lucky. They aren't superhuman. They simply decided to stop answering to impulse and start leading with identity. They realized that success is never the result of one massive choice. It's the compound effect of tiny decisions repeated over time. This is about who you are becoming, not just what you are doing. You're not just changing your schedule. You're changing your standard. You're not just showing up with more effort. You're showing up with more alignment. You're not just building better habits. You're building a stronger identity. You don't need more information. You don't need another motivational video. You don't need to wait for the perfect time. What you need is repetition. What you need is consistency. What you need is to lock in the behaviors that build long-term freedom, even when they don't feel good in the short term. Because real freedom doesn't come from escaping discipline. It comes from living inside it. From knowing you have the power to say no, the power to wait, the power to endure discomfort because you trust yourself to hold the line. You've seen the cost of the shortcut. You've seen the toll of distraction. You felt the weight of being out of alignment with your goals. And you know how good it feels to take control again, to do the hard thing, to be proud of your decisions, not because they were easy, but because they were right. That pride, it's worth more than any hit of instant pleasure. That peace you feel when you follow through, it's deeper than any comfort you've ever reached for. And that confidence you gain when your actions and your standards finally match, it's unshakable. So decide, every day, decide to show up differently. Decide to honor the future, not the craving. Decide to build instead of escape. Decide to lead yourself when no one else is looking. Decide to walk away from the comfort that's holding you back and toward the resistance that's going to set you free. And when you do, you will discover a version of yourself that doesn't fold under pressure, that doesn't chase shortcuts, that doesn't need a quick win to stay in the game. You'll discover a version of yourself who's built for the long haul, who's committed, focused, grounded, unstoppable,